Hello Sagittarius friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my video, Sagittarius, October 2020, Astrology Must Knows. As usual, there are many layers of details that I'd like to weave in for you to give you a really solid understanding of the energies that we'll be working with in October, the challenges and the opportunities, and how some of the themes that are coming up at that time relate to a bigger time period, and some little snippets looking ahead to understand better the power of this particular month. So we've got a lot of layers of making this month super emotional. The best way that I can help you understand in just a second what this month is likely to be like is for you to remember back to June and July. Whether you've been watching my videos or not, you probably noticed that for Saggies at that time it was super emotional, a lot of changes, and just really transformational, sort of heavy transitional period of time. And October is going to be very similar. There are a lot of similarities. The first similarity is that in June, July, we had Mercury retrograde in a water sign. Okay, in general, when planets move through water signs, they move through angles that are challenging for Sagittarius placements. It literally drowns the fire out of us. Sometimes that can be positive because sometimes we have too much fire, right? And it's necessary and it's helpful, and it helps us to rethink things, to redirect our energies, to assess and to strategize, and sometimes just helps us to become more calm and to rest. So you will have those same opportunities in October that will be super positive. At the same time, having your fire drown out usually doesn't feel very good. And it feels heavy, it feels wet, soggy, and uncomfortable, and you are likely going to have that come up. And this happens every year at this time, at least the movements of planets through Scorpio happen. So you might notice that yearly, and it is good for you to start to pay attention to the certain ways that planets, as the planets move through certain signs, notice how you feel at different times of the year, because there will be some similarities when you look. October and November, as Scorpio energies are starting to come in, have that very intense feeling, and it starts to bring attention to the areas of relationships, and you will see this show up in a huge way as Libra and Scorpio energies are highlighted. Your friendships, your romantic relationships, your business relationships, all of those will kind of go into this introspection. The positive aspects of this could be people coming back from your past that you want to connect with. Either you hear from people out of the blue or you're drawn to connect with them, and it can be very fulfilling and be very meaningful. The challenges that can come along with that come along with this unfinished business, basically. So anything that was mopped up or not mopped up, that was swept under the rug, may come out to be actually cleaned up at this time. Some good news about this time, more good news, is that this is like October into November is the end of a storyline that we've been going through since the end of December last year that brought crazy change to the world. Okay, so I'll go back into that again later, but I just want to kind of point out that this month is like this stressed point before a major transition and new birth and major changes in energy. Okay, so my recommendation is to schedule yourself light at this time, minimal projects, minimal commitments, and anything that you plan, if it can be flexible, like these days you can plan travel, and a lot of airlines and things like that will have refundable tickets because of everything that's going on in the world and the unpredictable nature. So if you can make plans that are easily cancelable or flexible, you'll be happy that you did, because plans are likely going to change. Certain things are going to be cast into uncertainty at that time. So if you just know that it's going to be an uncertain time, when you're walking through it, you can remember that I said that, and that time will pass. And as the planets move through, Libra and Scorpio and get to Sag, you'll start to light back up again. And you'll notice this into November and December, where your fire will come back. Launching time will come. Our year worth of retrograde energies will have passed. Our, year of this extra focus on outer planets in Capricorn, so Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto, the restrictions that came this year from those planets combining, that's going to all come to an end. But we're at the pinnacle here where everything is like to the nth degree and things are cracking open. Okay, so it's a time of major alchemy. And we're also stepping into what's going to be our next big changes. Because remember that Sages are in a cycle of massive change because the eclipse cycles. Okay, so earlier this year we started the Sagittarius Gemini, so basically in the summer or for winter for you all down under, started the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle, which runs through the end of 2021. And in this period of time, you're going to have a lot of life-changing occurrences. And as you are closer to the actual eclipse hotspots, as we're getting here in October, November, December are really eclipse season, you'll see those changes that maybe you've been feeling, maybe you've been even working towards, start to show up in a big way. Some of the things that happen will be things that you've been working for possibly even all your life, for a very extended time at least. And some of the changes might be surprises and some of them might be unwelcome, so there's just a massive amount of transformation that you're standing in front of. And although the eclipses are at the end of November and in the middle of December, we often see eclipse news and events and the percolating of the storylines really getting strong 4 to 6 weeks before, and sometimes even longer, before the actual eclipse. So that puts October in prime time for these rumblings to start getting really loud. And they may continue some storylines that had started earlier in the year, or there may be new elements introduced. So this is another thing that makes this month very similar to June and July, because we had eclipse season there with retrograde Mercury in water sign, and we have the same thing happening now. So now that you've gone through that, it wasn't pleasant. I've heard from many of you in agreement with me that it was very difficult, but we got through it, and there were probably some things that were better off or that were positively shifted from that time, and that are blessings. And so you can look forward to blessings as well at this time. Okay, but you got to walk through it first. Something else that we have that's bringing extra emotion to this month is we have 2 full moons. It's not common that we have 2 full moons within a month. So the second full moon, the first one's on October 1st, the second one is October 31st. The second full moon is a blue moon. Okay, so the second full moon in a calendar month or in a sign is called a blue moon. And we know there's already a ton of mystical, magical lore around the full moon. Wonderful things, crazy things happen at full moons, and a blue moon is extra special. And the fact that that blue moon is falling on a date that is very spiritual in many different religions or spiritual viewpoints is very powerful. So Halloween, All Hallows Eve, Dia de los Muertos, whatever you, or Samhain, whatever you practice or follow, having this full moon and this blue moon at this time is just really magical. Now, we do have an extra jolt with Uranus involved in the days around the 31st of October, but that could also jolt major spiritual insights, major connections to people who have crossed over. If you're trying to, contact or ask for someone who's passed over to come into your dream time or feel like their presence is with you, this type of thing might be easier when the veils are super thin during this time. So it's very exciting. There are certain areas of life that are going to be accentuated from these moons, and I'm going to list them because they couldn't manifest any or all of these for every Sag, okay? So look for changes, news, fullness, completion, fruition, possibly drama, possibly bliss, in the areas of home, family, and real estate. You might also see this in like children or creative projects or romantic relationships. You might see this in health or something with pets as well. And so just kind of notice if you have things that are already in process in those areas, they might come to fulfillment this month. And that is a benefit, a positive possibility of the full moons. They tend to bring things into their full lights, for better or worse, right? I always have what I call full moon freakouts, okay? And this is really common for people who are really connected to the moon cycles. Empaths, people who are really sensitive and aware of the unseen realms, tend to really feel these lunar cycles, and you'll be on high alert, and your sensitivities will be heightened at this time. What's great about that is your sensitivities will be heightened for your intuitive, your psychic perceptions, your creative forces, looking for solutions, looking for insights, looking for breakthroughs. Those are all increased, and just your sensitivities are increased. So you might want to, that's why I was saying, like, try to not schedule too much, because the odds that you'll want to be holed up kind of in a safe, quiet place away from a lot of people and their energy is very likely. Okay, so if you know this going into it, you can schedule yourself accordingly if possible. But if you're trying to have a breakthrough with something where you're working on anything spiritual or anything psychological, you have so much support this month. And if you're looking to have something hidden come to light, like you're trying to figure out an enigmatic health situation, or for someone in your family, something's going on under the surface and it's not quite clear, those things might become clear this month. They might be stressful and dramatic as well, but you may at least start to find some of this clarity in little bursts. But in general, the month has a lot of introspection and retrospection and casting into doubt things that seemed certain. So again, if you know that moving into this, then it will be easier knowing that it will pass. Okay, so you also might see some money pieces, especially at that moon at the end of the month, because it is in Taurus, and Taurus relates to finances and self-sufficiency and anything having to do with expenses and material things. Okay, the energy of self versus others is very likely to come up at this time, because there are clashes with these Libra and Scorpio planets. Libra and Scorpio are the partnership signs of the zodiac, and as the planets move through those signs, it brings relationship in the forefront. And you probably noticed this happens every year. There's like a highlight on your relationships, and sometimes that's for better. Like, again, you might see friends, you might connect with them, you might be in contact with people who you want to be in contact with, and then also the things that have been unresolved may come up, and you have a chance to heal them. So there are strife aspects, and there are boundary opportunities. This is a major thing that Sagittarius are always doing, which is trying to really tune in and set boundaries and not just say yes to everything, before you really feel into it. So a major blessing that we have this month has to do with Venus making the most beautiful aspect in all of astrology to those outer planets in Earth signs. Okay, so out of our outer planets, the outer planets are the ones furthest from us. We have 4 of them, so a predominance of them in Earth signs. And these are long-term transits. They take a while to move through. So Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto have been in Capricorn, and Uranus is in Taurus. So Venus is going to move into Virgo, and it's going to bring these connections to those outer planets that can bring enhancements to love and self-esteem and beauty and money and, any things that were ruckuses prior in the year, as these aspects have been, these planets have been making challenging aspects, can start to gel in a really nice way. And for Sagittarius in particular, things involving your work, your career, father figures, authority figures, recognition, editing, publishing, teaching, learning, traveling internationally, or immigration issues, all of those are likely to come up. And I don't know what the story will be as far as traveling to places, but I do believe that next year, as we pass through all these Capricorn placements, that things in that arena will start to open up more, and really the world will start to open up more. A major must-know about this whole year that's very much encapsulated in intensity in this month has to do with these planets moving through Capricorn, the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, making connections with each other and bringing the keynote for this year of restriction, okay? Also coupled with all the retrogrades. I told you all last year that this was going to be a year of going inward and backward, and that the momentum could be slow and things could be stuck and we'd be very internal. at the time that I said that, I did not know that it was going to manifest through global quarantine. But I did see the energies and share with you that this was going to be a year that was like that. And although it seems like it's dragging on and it seems like it's going to be forever, the world is going to open up again. And it's probably going to start to have more signs of doing that November into December and beyond, because as Jupiter and Saturn move out of this energy of restriction in Capricorn into Aquarius, the new options, the openness, the resources, the solutions, the ingenious lightning strike ideas start to come in. So the job that we have this year, and this is from the individual level up to the global level, I'm calling it like the rise of the grounded revolutionary, okay? Because the energy's teeter-tottering between Capricorn and Aquarius. Capricorn is like the traditionalist. It's the old system. It's the way things were. You know, it's all, so you can see that all of the systems have been tested. And I did also talk about this in the Jupiter and Capricorn video that I posted at the end of last year, that all the systems would be tested this year. Again, I did not know exactly how that was going to happen, but we saw from the astrology that they're being tested. So our job individually and up to the global level this year is to find the pieces of the old systems that are working and that can be a foundation for the new systems, solidifying them, clearing the decks for the rest, and being open to the new. But the new hasn't really started to make itself really firm yet. And the end of this year, especially here, October into November, we're going to quiver with uncertainty, with elections and with, just everything that's going on before it cracks. Another visual that I'd like you to really hold with you for the time of October and November that will really help you to understand and put it into perspective has to do with the imagery of birthing, okay? So when a woman births a child, it usually hurts like hell. There are people that go through and they have a blissful experience, and I believe that can happen. It's not the norm, though, in at least westernized societies that I know of, okay? Birthing things hurts. And there's a period right before the baby comes out called transition. We know what the word transition means, the definition of it, but in the medical birthing term, it's a technical term. It's a phase of the birthing process where the cervix is dilated and the baby could come out any minute. Okay? And sometimes that moment lasts for a really long time, and sometimes it lasts for just a moment, but it's the time right before the baby is going to come out. When the cervix is ready, everything is ready. And practitioners and experienced moms will know that transition is happening because the mother will say something like, I can't do it. There's no way that this is going to happen. The baby is never coming out. Crazy things. My personal favorite, because it was what I said when I delivered my first child. I said, people don't do this. Humanity is a lie. So it's like that energy of looking at something that feels like it's coming, but it feels like it's completely impossible, is the energy of transition. And that's what we've been going through as humanity, as a group together for this whole year. And that's what's going to be embodied in the energy of October into November, is this transition right before the birth. So if you know, going into this month, it's a major must know that you're going to feel this way, and you may feel like there's no way that something's going to happen. You may feel that there's no way everything's going to be okay. And then guess what? You surrender, the magic happens, and then everything turns out to be however it's going to be, but it usually works out in ways better than we think that it will. So, and the new possibilities open up either way. So October into November is like the ending point of this major restriction, the opening up into the new way, and it's the beautiful transition point, the alchemical moment in this beautiful process. So very intense, as you can see. Okay, so something else that's going on has to do with Mars being in retrograde. So Mars went into retrograde in September. It got deeper into its pre-retrograde shadow all through August. So we've been working with this since the end of July, all August. September is officially retrograde. October, fully retrograde all month. November, it'll be retrograde until the middle of the month. It will go direct, and it won't completely leave the post-retrograde phase until into January. But as we get towards the end of November and into December, you'll be feeling the momentum coming back. But Mars retrograde forces are going to be ruling all this time. In October, we're just like right in the thick of it. You can check out my blogs if you search for Annie Botticelli Mars retrograde, or if you click under this video, it'll say more with a little arrow. It'll reveal a lot of links. Most of my work is free, and you'll see in those links all of the free things that you can connect to further help you understand the energies of the planetary movements and how you can align with them. But in any case, I'll give you a couple of snippets here. Mars retrograde, I think in general, is going to be very positive for Sagittarius because it's moving through Aries, making beautiful aspects for Sagittarius placements, okay? So in general, I look forward to Mars in retrograde now because I understand what it's about. It's a time to take a break from being so fiery, okay, basically, because Mars is ruled by Aries, and Aries is a fellow fire sign. So there's a fiery element to the energy of Mars. And when Mars is in retrograde, it gives us an excuse to not be like we usually are, which is very comforting because it's like it gives us permission to just not do much. It gives us permission to be lazy and to scale down our ambitions and to make things manageable and to put systems together that can help us to have balance and keep balance in the future. But what might happen is you might notice when your ambitions are going, you might think there's something wrong with you and try to fight it and then force it. Then the keynote of Mars retrograde, which is frustration, comes out. So if you can just notice when you're trying to force something, if it's not working, and then you just stop doing that or follow the flow of wherever it's going, you can have a really relaxing Mars retrograde. I like to schedule vacations, although of course I'm not really going anywhere this particular Mars retrograde, but in general, vacations, staycations, resting from work and extra projects as much as possible during Mars retrograde, because I know that I get lazy, and now that I know not to fight it, you can really coast. Things that you worked on before can really just float you in a nice way at this time. And if you have basically any act of aggression or assertion can boomerang back to you. So if you have to be in an argument with somebody, it's not good to force energy at people. It's not good to attack anybody because that energy tends to boomerang. So it's a better time to be introspective about your anger if you have to, and to heal it, and to baby your liver, and to heal your liver, and to look into the reasons why you're angry. A big reason why Sagittarius people are angry is because they don't set boundaries, and then people let them not set boundaries, and then we feel like they're taking advantage of us because we didn't set the boundary. In the meantime, it's the plight of the Sag to realize that we're teaching people how to treat us by what we agree to and what we take on. So, a lot of the reason for anger turns out to be anger itself because we couldn't set a boundary, and then anger at somebody else because they didn't set it for us. So, this is a really beautiful time, the whole second half of 2020, epitomized in this month, to really take a look at that, and be super aware of the places where you just want to say no. And if you say no, sometimes there's some pushback, but you might realize that it's a little bit easier than you think sometimes. And then you think, gosh, why didn't I do that sooner? So those things are definitely going to come up. Okay, two more things I want to talk about. Jupiter went direct, or Jupiter is going direct, depending on when you're watching this, in September. And that is something to celebrate for Sagittarius because Jupiter is our ruler, and we feel very muted and weird when Jupiter is retrograde. And often, to the day or to the week, you'll notice. So in the second week of September, things will start to come alive again with Jupiter. And that is exciting, okay? So you might have more optimism, you might have more, your luck may come back, you might, feel like you're not as much under this cloud that just keeps raining on you. So October, it will be more towards full steam, and you'll notice that. Now, at the same time, Mercury and Mars is in retrograde, so we talked about that, but if you pay attention to the subtle levels and layers of these, you'll notice certain aspects of yourself turning on and moving forward, even in the midst of this retrograde of the personal planets that are, sort of bringing you backward and inward. So I expect it to be really positive in that way for Sagittarius. The one thing that we have to note about Jupiter going direct is that it is going to start charging towards interacting with Pluto and Saturn. And that's going to be very, very powerful. So October, November, December, when this happens, it's like the final storyline. I mean, it's not the end of the end, right? There's always going to be a continuation of what's happened this year. But there's a story that started at the end of last year when Jupiter moved into Cap that's going to end when Jupiter makes its final connection with Pluto and then moves into Aquarius and connects with Saturn. Okay, so this is really the beginning of a new, and again, what I'm calling like the grounded revolutionary. When we think of revolutionaries, because the energy of Aquarius is like the revolutionary, we think of these people who led these charges for independence or different kinds of things in history, and we think of them as revolutionaries, right? A lot of times those people were very reckless. They were very, angry. They were very, just careless, and they still got things done. But what's happening now with the combination of Jupiter into Aquarius with Saturn there is really the story of how we can be revolutionaries in a way that's grounded and more practical, less reckless, and more planned with more strategy. So if you can find that place within yourself and then, notice in the world the ways that some people who are leading will be having more of a grounding, rather than like these super radical ideas that aren't necessarily grounded in and are too emotional, might not get the footing that is the storyline of what we're doing in the world moving forward. Because pure emotion is not always enough to get to the goal, because it interferes with the set of solutions that could be the process of getting to the goal. But our job, and the job for anyone in a leadership position and just living in this world, if they choose to accept it, is to heal those emotions, and then with a grounded, meaning not super emotional, like integrated emotions, leading with the foresight, without the recklessness, making the new world in a very practical, planned, strategized, calm way. Okay, so one more thing that I wanted to tell you about, and this is really interesting, is that as the planets move through Libra, there are different body parts that are associated with the different signs. And so there are different areas of the body that can get lit up when the planets are moving through different signs. So one of the areas ruled by Libra is the kidneys. And the kidneys, I've talked about this before if you've been listening to my videos for a while, I'll talk about sometimes that certain organs relate to certain emotional states. And we talked about this with Mars retrograde in the August report, and I think even into September, where Mars rules anger and resentment, and anger is housed in the liver and resentment is housed in the gallbladder. Okay, so what's housed in the kidneys is fear. And there's a circuit that starts with your adrenals with the fight or flight or freeze response, okay? And then it goes down to your kidneys energetically. It moves down your psoas muscle, which is over here down by the vertebrae by the kidneys at the bottom. And then it goes through your, hips down and connects to your femur, basically the top of your hip. And then there's a muscle called the psoas muscle, P-S-O-A-S. And then there's a muscle called the piriformis, P-I-R-I-F-O-R-M-I-S. And that is a hip rotator. And it goes in there, which is what usually causes sciatica, is the inflammation of this piriformis muscle. And then the energy moves down the legs into the knees, and the knees are a big part of, where fear is stored, and then it goes out through the feet. And a lot of times with feet injuries or issues, there's this energetic, when there's issues from the hips down, of moving forward, fear of moving forward. So you might notice that the energy of fear is very strong in the world, in yourself, in your life, in your home at this time. But there are things that you can do to clear and integrate that fear and to use it as alchemical fuel to move forward. And one of those things is to stretch your piriformis and psoas muscles. This hip flexor, the psoas muscle, is super tight. When you're sitting, when your legs are bent like that, it's tightened. And many people have tight psoas muscles. They don't even know where it is or what it is, but it's a problem for them. And a lot of it has the energy of holding fear. So I suggest, unless you have a hip replacement, have had a hip replacement, or you have brittle bones or some other reason why this isn't indicated for you, in which case I would work with a practitioner who can assist you. But for everybody else, stretching these, if you look up the psoas muscle stretches, piriformis muscle stretches, and you stretch them regularly, you might notice that the fear circuit that flushes down from here down to there, to the feet and out, has a clear movement. So you feel it and it passes rather than getting stuck and paralyzed in it. Okay, so the second thing that I love for fear is the EFT, the emotional freedom technique, which you can look up online, and there are tons of free resources. I'm a huge advocate for it. You'll see EFT tapping scripts in my new book, Planetology, that will be out in December. You can pre-order it now, but tapping scripts for the signs and the planets, and you can find just general EFT for anxiety and fear when you do an online search. And this is scientifically proven to help clear fear and help clear anxiety. So you can definitely use those to help you make the most of the potentials this month, because with every layer of difficulty, that's a layer of opportunity that you can use if you know what's happening and you don't get lost in the story and you use practices that can help convert. So if you'd like more information about what's going on this month and what you can expect, I have so many free resources for you. Most of my resources are free. You can click on the More button underneath this video with the arrow, and it will open up the links I'm about to share with you. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, and you can sign up for my free email newsletter, where I will give you a write-up of all the sweet aspects, the salty aspects, what to expect from them, the dates that they occur, plus a written write-up of the general transits 1 month early in your inbox. I only send out 3 emails a month. I don't spam because I don't like to get emails all the time. So just information based that will help you with all of the different astrological occurrences for the month. And you also get my 28-day virtual coaching program called Shine for free when you sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com, and you can see my extensive blogs there. You can go to my school, Luminous Life Multiversity, at lumelife.com, L-U-M-E life.com, and you can see my free courses, including Unleash Your Money Magnet, which used to be a paid course and is now free. And you can also see paid courses there, including my Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery course. So if you resonate with how I teach and you want to learn, you can have more than you will know what to do with, either for your personal or professional usage. And you can see that at lumelife.com. You can see written horoscopes by me at cozybysweetstarlight.com. And these are much more simplified and shorter, but they do hit the highlights of the general transits for the month and where the sun is going to be for your sign and what kinds of things are likely to come up from that perspective. Plus there's healthy living blogs there, and astrology kissed blogs, I always say, like herbal teas for each sign, yoga for each sign, and all kinds of, how you make the most of the energies moving through each sign. Definitely pre-order my book, Planetology. It's getting so close now. You will love it. It is just a major handbook on how to help you align with the natural rhythms of the universe. So you can check that out. You can search for Annie Botticelli Planetology. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month.